What's going on, everyone? Welcome to my channel, Superbike Life, or ESBKLife for short. My name is Derek. It's been quite a while since I posted anything, probably a couple of months, and I won't bore you with all the gory details and boring details as to why I haven't posted anything, but I'm back at it now. I'm going to try to start posting on a regular again. We'll see how that goes, but I still have some roadblocks that we'll talk about in a minute. On today's episode, we are working on the Aprilia RSV4 factory. We are changing the tires using my Nomar manual tire changer, so stay tuned. Welcome back, guys. What we are looking at here, let me adjust the camera, there we go. What we are looking at here is the wear on the front tire of my RSV4 factory. And what you're looking at are cords, metal cords within the tire. And obviously this tire is smoked and well past its prime. And it's unfortunate because primarily what I use this bike for is droning back and forth in the morning and the afternoon on my way on my way to work and on my way home from work. So these tires get chewed up on the highway. That's how this happened. I think I'm down to 0 tire pressure. The rear's not as bad, but these tires are way, way past their prime, which is why we're changing them. And we are putting on a fresh set of Bridgestone S21s that I got from Rocky Mountain ATV. If you guys know of a cheaper place to get them, let me know. But I've found that on sport bike tires, Bridgestones, Dunlops, Pirellis, you name it, they have pretty much the best prices. Every now and then I can catch Motorsports on a deal or something like that, but I found that Rocky Mountain ATV tends to have the lowest prices on these tires. Again, I could be wrong. They're not a sponsor of mine. I'm just sharing that information. So take it as what you will. We're going to be using my Nomar manual tire changer over here. I picked this up. Sorry, let me adjust the light again. I picked this up maybe about 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago, maybe, I'm not sure. As you can see, it's bolted to a plate, and the plate is bolted to the concrete flooring, front and rear. And this is one of their older units, but it still works well. It certainly has paid for itself. When you think about it costs $20 to $25 per wheel to change tires on a motorcycle. All you got to do is change a few of these, and it's, like I said, it's paid for itself. And with all my bikes, I'm changing tires quite frequently, particularly on the track bikes. So this thing certainly doesn't owe me any money. But what we need to do first is get the wheels and tires off the RSV4, and then start getting them, the tires dismounted from the wheels using Nomar and changing things. So let me put you guys back on the stand, and we'll get to it. So I'm at the front wheel. The first thing we want to do is we want to remove the calipers. So I have my trusty 3/8 ratchet with a 13 mil socket. And we're just going to go ahead and loosen up this caliper. Now, obviously, I have the bike on front and rear stands. Obviously, you're going to want a front stand that can get the bike up off the ground far enough so that you can remove the wheel once you drop it down. I would use my table, but the S1000 track bike is currently in the way. So as you can hear, I have the garage doors open. So you'll hear car noises, dogs, kids playing, whatnot. Fairly brisk day here. February, Sunday afternoon. Okay, bolts are removed. Now, normally what I would do is I'd tape the back side of the wheel here as when I go to slide the caliper out, I don't want it to bang against the wheel and chip the wheel. But these Brembos are pretty much outside of the wheel, so as long as I go really slow, I shouldn't have a problem. And then I couldn't find any short bungees, but I have these really long bungee cords. So when you remove the caliper, you don't want it to dangle from the brake line. We don't want to put any undue stress. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hang it from something. One more time around. That should be good. All right. So now I'm just going to take my time, slide it off real easy so I don't bang it against the wheel, chip the wheel, and then we'll just hang this out of the way. Like so. We'll do the same thing on the other side. Okay, so now that I have both calipers removed and suspended, you can't see the other side, but it's done. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 5mm Allen socket and I'm going to loosen up the pinch bolts on the other side, as well as take my 1/2-inch drive and remove the nut. And then we can start to tap out the axle, pull it out, and hopefully I'll have enough ground clearance with this front stand that I don't have to remove the front fender. But if not, we'll be removing the front fender. So while I'm doing this, an update on a couple of things. So the project bike, the Project MV, the wrecked bike rebuild, that is still in process, by the way. I haven't forgotten about it. Carbon fiber wheels are over there with tires mounted, but the bike is still at my painter's. He's had it a couple of months now, almost 5 months now that he's had it. And it's one of those tricky situations, you know. We're working with one another. The bike is pretty much going to be a showcase piece for him. Oh, hold on. Sun just peaked up, which means this is all way overexposed. All right. Sorry about that. But it's going to be a collaboration. The bike is pretty much going to be a showpiece for his shop and so forth. And what I get out of the deal is a fantastic paint job for free. But when someone is doing you a favor, and you're working with them and doing them favors, and there's no money exchanging, you really can't pressure people to get them done on your timeline, particularly when I did not specify a timeline to him. I simply did not know it was going to take 4.5, 5 months. So he still has the bike, and I'll have it back at some point. I don't know when, but that's the deal on that bike. All right, so I got the nut removed, pinch bolts loosened up. Now I'm just going to grab my rubber mallet. Actually, I need to loosen the pinch bolts over here as well. Okay, and now we should be able to tap out the axle. There is a washer over on this side, so don't lose that. There's a special tool that they make for this, and I think it's a part of the toolkit that comes with the bike, but I have no idea where that toolkit is, so I'm just going to use a screwdriver, slide it just in here, and just start to work this out while I hold the wheel. There we go. And tire is off. So now we can move to the rear of the bike and take the rear wheel and tire assembly off. Okay guys, using my 1/2-inch breaker bar and my 32mm socket, I've already gone ahead and loosened up the rear nut here. So now I'm just going to finish removing that. I'm going to try to do this without having to move the chain adjusters. Not that it's a pain in the butt, but I already know that they're aligned. So why move them if we don't have to? Grab my rubber. There we go. Rear wheel off. Just pop these out. And there is a spacer. There is a spacer over on the right-hand side. So either leave it in or take it out. It's up to you. Just make sure you don't forget it when it goes back on. All right, let's take these over to the Nomar tire changer and get going there. So here's my Nomar manual tire changer, and as I mentioned, it's bolted to a plate. Plate is bolted to the floor, front and rear. This particular manual tire changer came with a number of upgrades. So these are the standard mounting blocks that are hard plastic. I forget what the material is called, but they don't mar your wheels. And then there's another set back there. Those are supposedly an upgraded set that hold the wheel still a little bit better. And then there are a bunch of different bars and clamps and everything that came with it. The numbers correspond here with the holes that are in top of the bar here, and they relate to your wheel size. So up to 22 inches down to 7 inches, and you can pull these out and adjust them as necessary. And they sort of, this one has an adjustment arm so it spins, but the other ones lock in place. You can see that there are the blocking plates or whatever that keep them locked into place so they don't move. On the side here, there's an arrow. That arrow corresponds to where this block should be when you're going to deflate the tire. So what we want to do, or I should say, break the bead from the tire bead from the wheel. So we'll line this up. As you can see, we're not. So lift this up, place it there. So now when we go to put our wheel on here and we use our bead breaker, a long arm attached to here, again with some hard rubber on the bottom, so it won't mar our wheel. That puts the correct amount of pressure on there. But enough talk, let's see how this thing works. All right, so the first thing we want to do is just get it up here and sit it up here so that it's nice and flat or whatever. We want to remove the Schrader valve. So there's not a whole lot of air in this thing. I think it's below and here's my Schrader valve removal tool. I think there's maybe 5 pounds of air pressure in this thing. Look, it's not even enough to shoot the Schrader valve out. That's how bad this was. There we go. So here's our Schrader valve. If you never removed one of those from your valve in your car, motorcycle tires. So now the air is all out. Actually, I want to move this one in just a little bit. And that one should be fine. Okay, so we placed the tire directly over the block with the arrow. So it's nice and situated. Then we grab our breaker bar, set it right on the tire, not the wheel, and simply push down. And a lot of times, once it's broken, we don't need to do that anymore. Okay, flip it over. We'll do the same thing. All right. Okay, so now we have to remove the tire from the wheel. So I'll readjust these. And again, just find what works best for your wheel. These are, again, alignments, so there's no 17, so I'm in between 16 here. And depending on how you turn these, you'll get different configurations or different spacing. So just continue to move them within the holes and turn them as well, because I can certainly do that depending on how much space I have or don't have. So once they're in there, what we do is we press down and slide the wheel into that groove. This one came back. All right, we'll do the other side. There we go. All right, so once the wheel is all in the grooves, we turn this and tighten it, which holds it into place. Sometimes that bead will pop back on there. There we go. What we'll take our rod here, it comes out. And again, this is a hard plastic on the end. And there's a technique to this. The first few times you do this, it's a real pain in the ass, but once you get the hang of it, it becomes easier. If you look this up online, there are a couple of YouTube videos by Nomar. They make it look super, super easy. This is, again, this is an older one. But on the newer ones, there's also an extended handle that you can, on this side, so that you can grab and have some leverage. But again, we're using the older one. Hard plastic so it doesn't mar your wheels. So all I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab a clamp here. I'll press this down to keep the tire down. And then I'm going to work this in here. There we go. Turn it. Actually, I probably don't need that. All right. The goal here is to pull this up so you can get this as high as you need it to be. So we can flip it over like that. Then we'll bring our bar around here. It has a long rod that just slides down in the hole. It doesn't need to make contact, but this is more just an alignment. There's a pin in the place that holds it. It shouldn't even move this much, but mine does because it's fairly old. We'll drop that down just like that. Tighten it up. Let me knock this pin back in there so it doesn't move. And then we just use this as leverage. Spin this off, lift. Here we go. That's one side. We'll adjust this up. Move this out of the way. And then we'll do the same thing for the other side, which means we have to lift the tire up, slide this down in here. Like so. Bring this back around. Drop that in the hole, tighten it up, and then lift and spin. Lift this up. And our tire is off. Smoke tire, cords, now garbage. So we'll toss that out. And let's see. Put that out of the way. Now let's get our fresh rubber. Okay, we got our fresh, nice, sticky Bridgestone S21 tires. I actually love these tires. They provide excellent grip at a reasonable cost. When you compare these from Rocky Mountain ATV shipped to my door, all included, everything in, it was about $220 for the set. And if you can catch them where there's a mail-in rebate, you can actually get a full set for your bike for about $180, $190 or so, which is awesome for this tire. It's really, really good tire. I like these a lot, more so than the previous S20 tires. So when you compare them to, say, Pirelli Diablos, like a 190 rear or 200 rear, those things can go for $250+ just for the rear. You can spend $500 easy on a set of Pirellis and some of the newer tire like the Dunlop Q4s, which I heard are fantastic, by the way. But for the price, what I'm using these for, these S21s are awesome. They're a great sticky tire. I've actually seen people use these on the track. So, great all-around tire for the price. So obviously we want to make sure that we line the tire up in the rotation. There's obviously on your tires there'll be a rotation arrow. Some will have a dot like this that will let you know the heavy spot. So, but you would line that up with the valve stem on your wheel so that it will be better balanced so that you won't have to use as many wheel weights. So over here I have my Nomar tire lube and paste. It's actually pretty gross looking inside, but you'll rub some of this on either side of the tire as well as in the areas of the wheel. So that's what I'll do now. So I'm going to put some on the lip. You don't need a whole lot, but until you get the hang of it, use what you think is best. So I'm going to put some on the inside of the lip here, some right on the lip bead, as well as a little bit some on the outside as well. Again, if you watch the Nomar video, they'll tell you exactly, because I can tell you right now, according to them, I'm probably using too much, but things don't always go as smoothly for me as it does them. Flip it around, do the same thing. I'm going to put some on the inner lip here. And again, this is just to help this rubber slide onto the wheel as easy as possible. We don't want to have to fight this thing. All right, so our tire's lubed. Now I'm going to put some on the wheel. So what they tell you is to put some in the drop zone here, right in the center, as well as on the outside lip here. All right, so there we go. I think they say between 10 and 2 on the lip here, but whatever. I probably have a little bit more than 10 and 2. So here's the arrow. Here's an arrow here, says this direction. So if I put it on like this, it's going the wrong way. So we'll flip it over. Okay, so here's our yellow dot. Just put my finger on it here, and I'm going to place it in the general area where the valve stem is. Then I'm just going to work this on here, like so. We'll check again. All right, so yellow dot is here, and there's the valve stem right there. And for this portion, I'm supposed to be able to use the rod here and feed this in and then work it all around to put them back on, but it never works for me. So I tend not to use that. Instead, I use the tire irons. And I have 4 of them. And again, they have hard rubber on the front so it doesn't mar your wheels at all. And I tend to use these more so than that. It simply works out better for me. So what I'm going to do is just going to sort of work the tire on the wheel as far as I can. And then this is called the yellow thing. It's literally called the yellow thing. And it's for just holding the tire in place. So we'll slide that around, put that on there like so. And then I'll have another clamp here. And be careful, these things pinch, and they're not nice. So now I just grab my irons, and I'll lay them in here, making sure I'm on the wheel. There we go. And now I'll just work this around, and I'll take small bites. And the key is to get this not to move. So that's always tricky. And I'll move my yellow thing around. Okay. There we go. And there we go. Pull these out. Take our yellow thing off. Tire's on. So now what we need to do is we need to get it on the bead. So what I found that works best for me is I'll loosen this up here, and I'll just sort of bounce it initially. Because remember, we put lube in that drop zone. So now that's what it's sliding on. So once I'm happy-ish, and I am, I'll do that. And I got my valve stem here. And I'm just going to force some air in it, pop it on the bead, and we'll go from there. So now just force some air in here. All right. Really don't care that air is coming out. I just want to make sure that it's on the bead. Here's our yellow dot, roughly aligned up with the valve stem. So we're a little bit off, but otherwise we're okay. So what I'll do now is I'll put the Schrader valve back in here. And then we'll actually put some air in the tire. I'll check it. There we go. Put the cap back on. So now what we need to do is we need to balance the wheel and tire assembly. So you probably won't be able to see it, but this one already has wheel weights on here. There's some wheel weights right in here. We need to remove those. A lot of people grab screwdrivers and just twist them off. And I've actually done that as well, but you run the risk of damaging your wheels. We don't want to do that. So do yourself a favor, go to your local hardware store, Pep Boys, Checkers, whatever. And there are a couple of these. It comes as a kit. And these are plastic. They don't mar anything. And they're actually used for popping out the rivets, plastic rivets in your car door or something like that. And it comes with a complete set, different sizes and so forth. These work great for removing those wheel weights because they won't scratch your wheels. So I just go in behind them, pop one off at a time. There we go. All the wheel weights are off. So now what we need to do is we need to balance the wheel and tire assembly. All right, so what we're looking at over here is my manual wheel balancer. Oops, I forgot one thing. Forgot tape. So I picked this up. I think this one is from Harbor Freight. Not the greatest unit in the world, but it works out. So basically what we do is we take this rod, which is held in with Allen key. Oops, wrong size. Here we go. So we take this Allen key, slide the one thing off, slide this through your wheel, put this back on, tighten it down. Okay, like so. We plop it up on here, and you got to make sure that this thing is level, and I've already done that. I've already leveled it out, so there's a little bubble marker over here. We level it out, and now what we want to do is we're just going to give it a little spin and see how it does. Now again, we removed all of our wheel weights, and we removed all of our wheel weights, and we've aligned the heavy spot of the tire over the valve stem. And we might actually be pretty good because theoretically this is the heavy spot, and if it was out of balance where this yellow dot is, the heavy spot would obviously, gravity would pull it to the bottom. like so, right? But it didn't do that. So we might be pretty good. Let's see. Again, the dot and the valve stem are there. So it rotates back just a little bit. So this tells me that the heavy spot is around here. Let's move this way and see what happens. Yes, see it falls back. So we'll let it settle. So right around here is the heavy spot, which means we need to add weight up here. We don't know how much weight to add, so we hold it in place with some tape. So I got some wheel weights here. Just a big box of general wheel weights. Alrighty then. Guess the door wanted to close. Leave that open. So I'm going to use some of the old wheel weights here that I've already taken off. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tape them into place up here, give the wheel a spin, and see how it goes. And I'm going to start with 2. So right about here, the top of the wheel. Put some tape there. I'm going to slide in a weight. Yeah. It's hard to do this when the camera's in the way. Right, and then I'm going to slide one over on this side. Tape this up like that. Okay, then we'll give it a spin. So what we're looking to do is no matter where we put those, the tape with the wheel weights, the wheel shouldn't spin. It should stay where it is. So if I come over here and I stop it on this side, see how it's still falling? So it looks like we have too much weight. So I'm going to take one of these off. Grab this other wheel weight, put this right in the middle. All right, so now we'll do this again. Come over here. It's over here. Not bad. It stays there. So it's falling here, so we still have some weight elsewhere. It's not quite right, but this is pretty good. So we're still falling there. So I'll just continue this process until it's balanced. So we're all balanced here now, or at least good enough. I ended up with 3 here and 1 over here. First time that's happened to me before. Normally it's all in the same area, but whatever. I'm happy with it now, so I could take this off here. Grab my Allen wrench. Take that out and set this aside. Now we're ready to move onto the rear wheel. Okay. Okay guys, so I jumped ahead a little bit here. I've already gone ahead and finished up the balancing on the rear wheel, and I've reinstalled it. Now we're going to install the front wheel. But before I do that, a couple of things I like to do, depending on how much crap there is I like to clean up the bolts and the bolt holes for the caliper. So my caliper bolts here, you can see those there. Hopefully, hold on, there we go. Threads are nice and clean on all the bolts. And what I use is a tap and die set. Again, I got this from Harbor Freight, nothing special. It's a tap and die set. And basically what I like to do is I just like to clean up the threads. I grab the tap and die tool and just run this in here, clean up the threads. And then I'll take the ream tool and I'll run it in the holes, clean it out a little bit, and blow the debris out. That's just because, you know, over time, thread sealer, thread locker, what have you, tends to build up and gunk up in there. And it can be really difficult to get it out, can be really difficult to put it back in. And when that happens, then you strip threads and things of that nature. And the last thing we want to do is strip threads off the bottom of these Ohlins, because that'll be a pretty pricey mistake. So I've already gone ahead and done that. I've done all 4 bolts, and I've run the tool through here, cleaned up the threads. So now we're ready to put the wheel back on. The only thing that we're really going to need to do is we're going to need to grab a screwdriver and spread out the caliper pad so that it goes back on nice and easy. We don't have to fight with that. So you don't want to gouge these things, but the whole goal here is just to recompress the pistons back into the caliper so that when we go to slide it back on, we have plenty of room. And if you have a really, really full master cylinder, then you might want to check the flow tank over there. I know that I'm pretty good. I've checked it prior to. So that one's nice and spread out. Do that same thing over here. And this is also a really good time to check your pads. I mean, if the wear is really, really bad, they're already off the bike, so this would be an ideal time to replace them if they need be. All right, those are nice and spread out. And we're going to clean this axle up, re-grease it really quick because it rolled on the floor. I got some debris on there. Great. Set that like that. All right, and all we do is reinstall in reverse order. I'd never removed the spacer, so the spacer's still in on this side. Also, the wheel speed sensor is over here on the right side, my left. If you're on the bike, it's the right side. We'll slide this in here like so. And we just have to lift this up. And if these were carbon fiber wheels, it'd be a lot easier, but not on this bike yet. So we'll slide that in. Here we go. Now again, there's typically a tool to get this aligned properly. I have no idea where it is. Okay. It's all the way in. We'll start to screw this back on. Okay, so that's on. It's just snug right now. So now So we'll snug up these pinch bolts here just so that it holds. And you can look up the torque specs on all of these. I'm just going to snug it up so I can finish installing a nut over here. Okay. So then I'll snug these up as well. And there's a process for the calipers to make sure that everything is aligned and we don't have any binding. But I'm just going to snug these up right now. All right, so we get these out of the way. Now we're going to put the calipers on. I have my blue Loctite. We'll put those on, but you don't just want to put the calipers on and bolt everything down and, you know, torque it to specs. What we have to do, particularly with these calipers, because they're floating, there's no guide pin here on the mounting surface. Unlike the BMW, which I've cut those off to put on the Brembo M4 calipers. But there was an alignment dowels on here, and you'd slide the caliper on, and that kept the caliper from sliding back or forth or what have you. But the Aprilia, like a lot of European bikes, they don't have a dowel here. So we have to make sure that they're lined up. So what we do is we put the caliper on there, we put the caliper bolts in finger tight, and then what we'll do is we'll spin the wheel, grab the brake lever a couple of times, spin the wheel, grab the brake lever. That makes sure we have good pressure. And then we'll squeeze it and hold it there. And then we can tighten down the bolts to the proper torque specs. That keeps the caliper from floating and properly aligns it on the center. So when they release, the caliper will stay in place and it will spin freely. It won't bind. Your wheel will be all set. So we'll do that now. I got my blue Loctite. We'll try not to go crazy here. And we'll just put a little bit on there, like so. Grab another, like so. What did I do? There it is. Like so. All right. Get our tap and die out of the way. Remove the caliper from the bungee and slide it in here nice and easy. If you think you're going to hit your wheels, add some tape back there. Those are almost less than finger tight right now. What did I do with that last bolt? There it is. Do the same thing over here on the other side. Okay, so the bolts are finger tight now. So what we want to do, spin the wheel, obviously squeeze the lever because we push the pads back so they're not stopping right now. So we have to work that fluid back down to the caliper. There we go. So now it's stopping. So we do that a couple of times. And what it's doing is because the pads, the calipers aren't tight, it's centering the caliper on the mount and on the rotor and wheel. So then we'll stop it, we'll keep it squeezed, and then we'll tighten these up so it won't move. And while it's still squeezed, we'll do the same thing on the other side. Okay. And there we go. And now what I'll do is I'll go back in a few minutes here. I'll look up the torque specs of all the pinch bolts, the nut here, and the rear, and we'll torque everything up to specs so that things don't fall apart while we're droning on the highway. So that's it for today. Let's wrap this up. Again, I am Derek. This is my channel, Euro Superbike Life, or ESBKLife for short. Hopefully you found this video useful. If you didn't, smash it. If you did, like it. I could always use the likes. Next episode or next video that I post, whenever that may be, we are going to work on the BMW S1000RR track bike. I had a new, to me, Arrows exhaust with full headers because our Alpha Racing Race ECU has the bike running rich with my current exhaust setup. So rather than sending it all the way back to Alpha Racing, have them reflash it, we're going to try to resolve this by getting a freer flowing exhaust. Hopefully we get more air in and more air out, and it'll balance that out because the race calibration kit software, RCK2, which I have on this bike, doesn't allow for us to adjust all of that fuel adjustment so that it's not so rich. Well, we can't lean it up anymore. We're limiting what we can do there. But so we're going to do that next. We're going to throw the Arrows on there, run it for a while, then we'll send it back to my boys down in Chandler at Reparto Veloce. They'll put it back on the dyno and see how it does. And hopefully it's not running as rich as it was before. But otherwise, the bike is running awesome. So that's a wrap for this episode. I'm Derek, Euro Superbike Life. Like, subscribe, comment. Talk to you later. Bye, guys.